Welcome to Young Turks. I'm your host, Jake. We've got an amazing show for you guys. Get out of here. I'm in a great mood. A lot of breaking news, and all the breaking news is in our direction. Later in the program, massive layoffs at the Blaze. I mean, look, I feel bad. A little bit. Shout. Not really. Shouting for it. But anyway, a little bit later in the program. I thought conservatives are good at business. I don't know what happened there. Anyway, a little bit later in the program. And then America has a new hero. It is a mayor in Michigan. He is the mayor of hell. Not kidding. That's an awesome story. You know what he's done? He's banned a certain group of Americans, but I'm in favor of it. What is this? Including me, he banned me. But I still like the guy. What an amazing story. What an amazing show. But we start with breaking news that is phenomenal. I'm over here. Oh shit, that was smooth. All right, here we go. Breaking news.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Sheriff Clark. Down goes Sheriff Clark. Down goes Sheriff Clark. Sad day for you. He has resigned. The Milwaukee County Clerk has confirmed that David Clark has resigned as sheriff of Milwaukee County. This is the worst sheriff in America. I would argue even worse than Sheriff Arpaio. He was a disaster. He's a conservative who does not believe in the rule of law, who has done terrible things to the people of his own county. Had a chance that he might go to the federal government. Some people are still speculating about that, but I'll tell you my best guess as to why he is resigning, because right now they have not said. According to Milwaukee news station TMJ4, no word had been given as to reason Clark decided to suddenly resign this afternoon. I don't need a reason, first of all, to okay, you'll see why in a second, why I'm celebrating. So they asked federal government, there were rumors that he is going to go to the Department of Homeland Security. Well, Carol Costello reporting, a Department of Homeland Security official tells CNN Sheriff Clark is not going to DHS. Quote, he is, and in capital letters, not coming here, says the official. Excellent news. What is the more likely reason why Sheriff Clark has resigned? It is because of the monstrous activities that happened under his watch. Terrell Thomas was the first American to die of thirst in as long as anyone can remember. He died in a prison run by Sheriff David Clark. As HuffPost explained at the time, he was a mentally ill man who last year died of severe dehydration in a jail run by Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark. He was kept in his cell for 7 days straight after jail employees cut off his water supply. He was a pretrial detainee, as his family attorney says, in a mental health crisis. Instead of providing him with desperately needed treatment, the Milwaukee County Jail disciplined Terrell by locking him in an isolation cell, giving him an inedible Nutriloaf to eat, and shutting off his drinking water supply for 7 days, causing him to suffer and die from profound dehydration. At a bare minimum, it is enormous negligence. Kind of reckless regard for human life we have not seen in a long time, where you let someone in a prison run by Americans, inside America, die of thirst. Okay, you could say, well, maybe it was a one-time thing. No, there's an enormous record of abuse, but I'll give you another huge case on Sheriff Clark. A newborn infant died in the Milwaukee County Jail this past summer after a corrections officer allegedly laughed off a pregnant inmate's pleas for help as she was giving birth. Now, these guys who claim to be pro-life let that poor baby die after it was born because they gave no assistance, because they treated those inmates like they weren't human. And that's why there was a number of deaths there, let alone all the other horrific things that happened under Sheriff Clark's watch. The fact that he has resigned is great news for the people of Milwaukee, great news for the people of America. Couldn't be happier about it. And of course, there's also suggestion that he was going to get absolutely clobbered in the next election. He was going to lose anyway, so better to resign in disgrace than to get thrown out of office by his own constituents. Now he'll probably go around pretending he was popular when in reality he was disgraceful and very likely to lose that election. So Sheriff Clark, it's an absolute pleasure to report that you no longer work for any government associated with the United States of America. By the way, charges should be pursued against Sheriff Clark for what he did in those prisons. Look forward to that news story later. Okay, now that was excellent breaking news. Good day in America. Now let's go to a fun story. President Trump desperately wants to brag about his heroics in Texas. Now he went down, but did not go to the heart of Houston or the affected areas. He was in the perimeter, and the Texas governor said, "Look, that was so he wouldn't get in the way of the rescue efforts." That's fair enough, and also to make sure that he was out of harm's way. You know, maybe too much rain falls on the president. We can't have him get too close to harm. But no, the White House still is going to put out a statement saying about how he witnessed things firsthand, and they attach a picture which makes this story enormously comical. Here it is. They say, after witnessing firsthand the horror and devastation caused by Hurricane Harvey, my heart goes out even more so to the great people of Texas. And they attach a picture of him looking at a map, which I'm pretty sure is not firsthand experience in Houston. I too have looked at a map of Houston. I've seen lots of pictures of the flooding. That doesn't mean I experienced it firsthand. So of course, everyone on Twitter started making fun of him, including, I can give you dozens, I'll just give you one. This one was fun. So here's a person who wrote in, here I am witnessing the majesty of the Grand Canyon firsthand. It's amazing. And it's a picture of a Google map. Now, in case you're wondering, wait, now, Jake, are you sure they are referring to that picture and not when he was down in Texas generally? Well, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, in her explanation of this, pretty much confirmed, yeah, they were talking about looking at the map and talking to other people who had been there. She said, he met with a number of state and local officials who are eating, sleeping, breathing in the Harvey disaster. First of all, a really weird thing to say, but in other words, he met with people who were there. He talked extensively with the governor, who certainly is right in the midst of every bit of this, as well as the mayors from several of the local towns that were hit hardest. And detailed briefing information throughout the day yesterday, talking to a lot of people on the ground. That certainly is firsthand account. No, actually, that's the definition of a secondhand account. That means he was not there. He talked to people who were there on the phone and looked at maps. In fact, we looked up the dictionary definition of secondhand account, and it says, not directly known or experienced, obtained from others, which is exactly what Sarah Huckabee Sanders described. Look, if you're gonna go. If you're gonna go to the heart of it and experience it firsthand, great. He didn't talk to any of the victims when he was in Texas anyway. That probably would have been a decent idea to do. He bragged about the size of his crowds, which was an incredibly shallow, ridiculous thing to do instead of empathizing with the victims when he was down there. But the thing with Trump is that he can never stop digging. He's in a little bit of a hole. He's like, no, hold on, I gotta make this thing larger. It's like, oh, you wanna see my firsthand experience with Houston? Here's me looking at a map. Oh, for Christ's sake, stop digging. All right, now, since he can't stop digging, that brings us to the next story, which is the disastrous results for Trump. Okay, let's see. Trying to ascertain who did this poll. That would be a nice piece of information to give you guys. Why won't they say it? Okay, my bad, shouldn't have brought it up. Oh, it's a Fox News poll, even better. Oh, thanks, God. Okay. There's a poll out showing that Donald Trump is, I believe, not on the right side of the American people. They believe that he considers the media more of an enemy than white supremacists. Now, that in and of itself would be shocking and unbelievable. But the size of the poll is what makes it even more remarkable. So let me go to this question, and oh, look at this. If you're wondering if you're conservative, oh, this is not reliable, right? Please with you and your polls. It's a Fox News poll. So let's take a look at this question. Who do you think Donald Trump dislikes more? White supremacists or the news media? This includes Republicans. Only 13% of Americans thought that he dislikes white supremacists more than he dislikes the news media. 70% said, no, of course he dislikes news media more than he dislikes white supremacists. and 12% said, I guess he dislikes both. 6% like, I don't know, dude. Okay, we have a president that 7 out of 10 Americans believe dislikes news, the news media, things that are reported, more than he dislikes white supremacists. Look, it can't be understated how mental that is. Can't be overstated, okay? That is unbelievable. Could you imagine a scenario, if you asked me 2 years ago or any other time in America, do you think there'll be a point where Americans are absolutely convinced that their president dislikes news media more than they dislike white supremacists? I would have said, no, come on. Even if a crazy right-winger gets in there, there's no way, 13 to 70%, no way. But here we are, guys. Amazing. Okay, this is another number that is unreal. 56% said that the president is, quote, tearing the country apart. That's a Fox News poll. 56% is a giant number if that's your unfavorable. It's a giant number if you're that far underwater that people, and right now in another poll, in a Gallup poll, he said 60% disapproval, only 34% approval, and dropping 34% is a disaster. But I've never seen anything as bad as 56% of the country is convinced you're tearing the country apart. Wow. He thinks he's gonna pull another rabbit out of his hat. Oh, don't worry, I'm secretly popular. None of the polls are ever right. None of the news is ever right. Don't believe facts, etc. But at some point, facts have a way of coming home to roost. So you got lucky. You ran against Hillary Clinton, who was the most establishment candidate we've ever seen. She thought that running in favor of the status quo was a good idea. Man, that was a preposterously bad idea. You didn't win because people like you. You won because people don't like the status quo and the establishment. But now that you've been in charge for about 8 months, man, the jury's coming in and the country can't stand you. So you keep counting on that white supremacist base. See how it turns out for you. My guess is it is going to turn out very poorly in the next set of elections. Okay, now, speaking of which, we go to Donald Trump supporters. I got a lot of news for you today. I can't slow down. Can't stop, won't stop. At the end of the show, we'll stop. Okay. So new focus group out of folks in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Now, Pennsylvania critically voted for Donald Trump and was one of the reasons that he won the election, a very, very important reason. And that was considered to be part of Hillary Clinton's blue wall. But as we saw in Game of Thrones, sometimes walls come crumbling down in unexpected ways, and Pennsylvania did. Now, Pittsburgh itself was far more in favor of Hillary Clinton. But what they did in this focus group was they found people from all stripes who voted for Hillary Clinton, Trump voters, and then independent party voters. Not, like the independent party voters and Hillary Clinton voters, interesting, God bless, that's for another day. But what I found interesting is the Trump voters. Because are they gonna hold strong? So far in focus group after focus group, even with his incredibly deteriorating numbers with the rest of the country, the focus groups of Trump voters have generally stood by him. Not in this case. So I don't know if it's because they're from a blue state or from Pittsburgh within Pennsylvania. Even though they voted for Trump, maybe they're more susceptible to actual news because they live in a real city where they have real facts as opposed to a bubble where alternative reality is set in. But either way, this is not good news for Donald Trump if he ever runs for re-election and hopes to keep Pennsylvania again. So first off, here's David Turner, one of the Trump voters, saying, I traditionally am in the give the guy a chance group. His learning curve has been a little disappointing, meaning he hasn't caught on like everyone has said here. If he did this, he'd be okay. So that's point one, which is they're beginning to realize what a knucklehead he is. So almost every part of this is stuff that I've been telling you for a long time, where they're like, well, it's weird, he doesn't seem capable of learning. What did I tell you? All right, now let's go to Brian Rush, another Trump voter. He says, in some aspects, Trump is almost turning into a politician in a different way, saying things that he thinks his base wants to hear. He's let me down. Exactly right, Brian. So another thing that we've been pounding away at the Young Turks, because it's true. He never wanted to drain the swamp, he wanted to rebuild the swamp. So he said, oh yeah, I'm gonna go after the globalists and the bankers and I'm going to, all these guys took money from me and I'm going to stop that. And no, he hasn't stopped it. He filled his cabinet full of Goldman Sachs guys, financial, industry representatives, his top economic advisors, the former head of Goldman Sachs, and on top of that, I told you, he's a standard politician. It's ironic because he ran against the elite and the establishment and those standard politicians, and people voted for him because, as Rand Paul once said, he has the veneer of truth telling without the truth. But he seems like he talks like a regular guy. He doesn't often talk from a prompter. He's not polished. He says foolish things, and you think, well, that's a regular dude, so he's not a real politician. No, but at the heart of it, he told you whatever you wanted to hear, even though it was an obvious lie. On the case of healthcare, he said, oh yeah, I'm going to cover everybody in the country. And on top of that, it's going to be lower price for you. And on top of that, you're going to have more things covered in your healthcare. Well, that was a standard cheesy politician lie. And when he got in office, he's like, no, of course I'm not going to cover everybody. I'm going to cover 20 to 30 million people less than Obama did. Is your prices going to be low? Well, if you're rich or you're young, yes. If you're healthy, maybe. If you're old, I'm going to 4x your prices. But you said you'd make prices lower for everybody. Come on, man, I'm a cheesy politician. You believe that crap? Of course I am not gonna do that. Idiot, I lied to you. And now people are turning around going, I think he might have lied to us, and he might be a cheesy politician and he's just doing things to get votes from his base. To which I say, of course! But me saying that is not as important as these guys who are actual Trump voters beginning to turn around. So why'd they vote for Trump in the first place? Here's another voter that perfectly explains it and exactly what we told you, not just after the election, but before the election. He said it was more of an anti-Hillary vote and quote, I didn't want more of what we already had. Now, I re-emphasize that for you guys today, not just because it's an important phenomenon that the Trump voters are beginning to leave. We're seeing the beginning of that process, right? It's just the tip of the iceberg. But the other part of it is that the Democrats in Washington haven't learned any lessons. So you say, hey, you see what you did wrong? You were for the status quo, and Americans don't want the status quo. Look at what he says. I didn't want more of what we already had. But Democrats today are going, no, not Bernie Sanders. Not any progressives, not real change. Now, what we want is standard Democratic politicians who are going to say, well, come on, the status quo is not that bad. No, not too much change. No, tiny. I'm against Trump, whatever that means. I'm for resisting. What are you for, though? Resisting is pushing back on something. What do you want to go in the direction of? Oh, that's risky, I don't want to say. But I kind of like the things as they are. No, if you run another establishment candidate who is for no change at all, that is your only chance of losing to Donald Trump and the Republicans. Don't make that mistake, and they're in the middle of that mistake right now. You go turn on television, you barely find any Bernie Sanders supporters. They'll brag about one, maybe two in all of cable news. Then you'll have 20 Trump guys, and then you'll have 1 million establishment Democrats and Republicans. Television is not for change. It's owned by multi-billion-dollar corporations who don't want to rock the boat. So they won't let these guys on. Now, if the Democrats delude themselves into thinking that that's what the American people want to, they're gonna have another rude awakening. And that rude awakening is going to unfortunately crash on top of all of us. So we can't let them make that mistake again. JusticeDemocrats.com/win. Participate, get real Democrats that are uncorrupted by this corporate money and who don't want the status quo, they want real change. Okay, I'm not done yet. Let's go to Feinstein. Okay, so there's all these Democrats in Washington, and they believe the most important thing is, well, let's be civil. Let's be civil. Now, wait, you have a monster in office. Well, I'll do #resistance, and maybe I'll show up to a protest or two, and I'll hide behind Bernie Sanders in a press conference. But am I going to actually fight for anything positive? Well, that would be too bold. And how about fighting Trump himself? Well, let's be civil about it. So Dianne Feinstein, a senator from California, was asked about it, and here's what she said.
Urge his resignation or impeachment.
Well, look, this man is going to be president, most likely for the rest of this term. I just hope he has the ability to learn and to change. And if he does, he can be a good president. And that's my hope. I have my own personal feelings about it. Yeah, I understand how you feel. I understand how you feel.
No, you don't. I don't think you understand how we feel at all. So look, I don't need to put words in her mouth. She doesn't have to say any kind of particular magic sentence. And they always paint progressives as unreasonable or not practical, and we must have certain, words that are recited, policies that are litmus tests, et cetera. No, look, if you said, hey, right now there's not grounds for impeachment, but they're doing an investigation, let's let the investigation happen. If it turns out he did anything that's criminal, well, obviously that would be grounds for impeachment, but let's let that investigation conclude. Nobody's gonna get on you for that. Nobody's demanding that you grab a pitchfork and do impeachment immediately, or some people might, but that's not the majority of the folks, and that's not the heart of the question. And if you said, hey, look, there are things I could work with Donald Trump on if, and this is a giant, giant if he actually means it. For example, he wants to spend $1 trillion on infrastructure. If he's trying to sell off our highways to the highest bidder, and then we have to pay tolls forever, no, the answer is no, under no circumstances. If he actually wants to spend $1 trillion on improving infrastructure, then the answer would be yes. Those are reasonable answers. But when you come in and you go, I think that he can learn, and if he learns, he's gonna be a good president. Oh, no, he's not capable of learning, you know that. It's not like Feinstein looked at Trump and thinks, well, this guy could be a really solid president. I mean, if at the age of 70 some odd years old, he can begin to learn, then boy, he'll turn it around. No, the reason she says that is because Democrats in Washington have been taught, obey. Don't fight back too hard. Under any and all circumstances, be civil. The most important rule is be civil. So in a situation where you have a president who equates white supremacists, neo-Nazis, and the Klan with their counter-protesters, some of whom were murdered by those neo-Nazis, you don't have to be that civil. Look, I'm not telling you to curse, and sometimes Democrats do that because they feel like, ooh, I get some kudos for street cred for cursing without actually having to do any of the policy changes, right? But you can tell these old senators, they're not gonna fight the Republicans, they're not gonna fight them, because they've been taught and they have learned, you know what, nice and easy, nice and easy. Oh, maybe he could be a good president. So after she catches a lot of political heat, she then puts out a statement. While I'm under no illusion that it's likely to happen and will continue to oppose his policies, I want President Trump to change for the good of the country. They're never, ever gonna learn. You gotta get this old guard out, the people that are used to bowing their heads to Republicans, the people who are used to losing every policy fight to the Republicans, and you gotta get some fire breathers in there. And I don't mean fire breather, again, in terms of semantics or cursing or any of the preposterous stereotypes that the establishment media and the establishment Democrats have about progressives. I mean fire breathing in terms of fighting for us, fighting for policy, fighting for a higher minimum wage, fighting for free education, fighting for Medicare for all. And of course, Feinstein earlier when asked for Medicare for all, I might be, theoretically in favor of that, but we're not ready. I wouldn't want to fight the Republicans. I'm not ready. My God, I mean, look, let's just put it this way, Dianne Feinstein is not in her 20s. When are you gonna gear up to fight? Which decade is that going to happen in? No, get new blood in there, man. Look, there's, right now, I don't know of a progressive candidate that would run against her in a primary. Well, boy, that would be helpful though. But whether it's her or anybody else, you gotta primary these guys, you gotta clean them out, because they're never, ever gonna fight for you. Go to justicedemocrats.com, go to justicedemocrats.com/win. Make a difference, fight for progressive values, because these people aren't gonna do it. All right, I'll take a break. I've got another Democrat story for you guys, and then we'll beat up Trump more, because that's what's in the news. And later in the program, later in this hour, the blaze is ablaze. And I'm not even gonna run a told you graphic, but I might run some videos. All right, you'll have fun, you'll enjoy that. I'm over here, we'll be right back.
I'm gonna tell you a story, and then I want you to tell me what you think about the way I reacted to the situation and if you thought it was acceptable.
Guilty. Oh wait, I gotta wait for the story.
I know Anna Kasparian has some stuff to say, and the world needs to hear it.
But then he became woke bae. I hate it.
I love it.
Hey, Susan and I used to do this trick where we would elongate the videos so that we would look skinnier.
That is the most positive drug dealing story I've ever heard of.
Bears don't give a fuck.
I trust you guys, audience. Don't let me down.
You don't believe in ghosts? Talking about pussy. Oh, don't.
The food in Turkey is phenomenal.
Hey, we got spam in TYT. What is this? What's a spam?
Oh, death.
Did you want to poop outside? No, I poop here. It's fine because I bury it.
And you know what happens in that water? Turns frogs gay.
And they can't stand the establishment. And then I slipped and fell on my ass.
Guess I gotta get comfortable here.
That is tomorrow's joke. Jake, when your time is up, what wouldn't you do for just one more day?
I'm gonna try to have sex with you. If you don't want it right now, just roll up a newspaper and hit me.
Hottest club I've ever been to is my bedroom. People often say that you are the Jasmine of TYT.
Yep.
Please, I am not with you, baby. You gotta let me go.
Oh God, this hurts so bad.
You're alive, you're alive. The last day is not any more valuable than today is.
Hey Jen, what's up?
Aaron, did they change the icon for Vine? I can't find it.
They'd rather lose to Republicans than have a progressive win with them. That's how dumb the corporate Democrats are.
It's the Democrats who lull you to sleep, and at the end of the day, they're the ones who push the right-wing agenda.
Most of the people are either unemployed, underemployed, or fucked.
This is why you lost to Trump, you fucking moron. What the fuck is wrong with you? Whoever wrote that, I'm sure they were typing with one hand and going like this with you. The Democrats are dead. The way you feel right now, that's how a chump feels. Do not freak out.
On the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur here. YouTube super chat. Your comments get to move up and you support the show. Rec G writes in, let's stop waiting for politicians to save us. Hear, hear, brother, hear, hear. WM Crossan writes in on Twitter using hashtag TYT Live. President Trump's current unpopularity should remind the DNC how unpopular Hillary Clinton is. People still won't vote for her. That is true and devastating. The mathematician says Trump is sadly like a comical satire of the stereotype of a real politician. And Dimesh says, and it took me a second to get this. He says, I witnessed firsthand the army of the dead led by the Night King and the destruction they brought. Or perhaps it was on HBO. Okay, so you go, next story. I'm gonna stop noting it because we're just too smooth in a sec. All right, anyway. So interesting story coming out about Kamala Harris. She's a senator from California, a new senator, not much of a track record. Some people are concerned because a lot of the Hillary supporters are coalescing around her unannounced campaign. People believe that she might run for president. And so in July, Harris said she supported single payer, quote, as a concept, but that lawmakers still needed to, quote, work out the details. So that was further disconcerting. And her camp perhaps wisely began to realize that that might lose her progressive voters, which is kind of what you need in a Democratic primary. And she does not, of course, have the advantage that Hillary Clinton had of massive name recognition. So she's gonna have to appeal to the progressive base more. And today, she says, I intend to co-sponsor the Medicare for All bill because it's just the right thing to do. All right, God bless, I'll take it. So now some people are being a little bit skeptical here, and I hear you, but let me explain and hear out the whole story, okay? So Senator Harris goes on to say, it's not just about what is morally and ethically right, it also makes sense from just from a fiscal standpoint. That is absolutely right. It's actually the one thing that could magically deliver what Donald Trump promised during the campaign, which was coverage for everyone. Medicare does cover everyone. Lower prices, Medicare is lower prices, and more coverage. And by the way, there's also Medicare Advantage. Not only does Medicare cover all of your basics, but if you want more above that, you can get private insurance on top of Medicare, which is called Medicare Advantage. So she's absolutely right from a fiscal standpoint. It is also absolutely the right thing to do. And here's a guy that, of course, a lot of progressives do trust, and it's Bernie Sanders who is going to introduce this bill in the first place. And he says, thank you, Kamala Harris, for your support. Let's make healthcare a right and not a privilege. So overall, let me just say this for progressives who are skeptical. Take your wins. If you think that she was pressured into supporting Medicare for all, great, that's not such a bad thing. I mean, that's how politics works, right? Either somebody does the right thing on their own or they get pressured into doing it. Now, we don't know Kamala Harris's mind. I don't like to talk about people's hearts. I don't know what that means. But we don't know what was there in her mind before this and why she's doing this in particular today. But a vote is a vote. So if she's going to help Medicare for all get passed, I love it and I'll take it. Now, I get the other side, which is, look, if it's just words and then she winds up winning and then doesn't do it and says, oh, it's a lower priority, I'll get to it later, yes, then it's a terrible trick. But for the moment being, don't cut your nose off to spite your face. I'm not saying be naive and go, oh, no. And I'm positive I know her heart and it is filled with goodness and rainbows and unicorns. But if someone's on your side, that is a good thing, not a bad thing. In fact, momentum builds. It was just Bernie Sanders in the beginning, and I remember we covered it on the show. All the other senators were like, oh, please, Medicare for all. No. We're just gonna fight against Trump's proposal, which is at 17% popularity, and we're gonna congratulate ourselves for clearing the lowest bar in politics. So now, though, all of a sudden, lots of pressure from progressives, which is wonderful, and people who earnestly believe in this now coming out. Elizabeth Warren on board, Kamala Harris on board, and yes, even Kirsten Gillibrand. So there are 4 senators now. Where there was 1, now there are 4. You go over to the House, it's even better. There used to be 72 for John Conyers' Medicare for All proposal. Now it's up to 118, and that one is clearly you guys. because we did a campaign at Just Democrats, joined by the nurses union. John Conyers, who was the sponsor of that bill, has given us credit, saying yes, it was the public pressure brought on by Just Democrats and the nurses union that drove those votes. It went from 72 co-sponsors to 118. That's a 60% increase in Democratic support in the House. Great work. Keep on going. In fact, Just Democrats have this campaign, hashtag stand up for Medicare. They're asking the congressmen to do it. They're asking the senators to do it. And you can see it with your own eyes. When they started, there was only one senator and 72 guys in the House. Now there's 118 and 4. You're doing that. So one of the things they're asking you to do is to make your own videos so that eventually the congressmen will make their videos. And Conyers already has a video. Congressman Ro Khanna already has a video saying, stand up for Medicare. So if you're gonna do one, great. It's super simple. You can do it on your phone. Say who you are, where you're from, why single payer or Medicare for all is really important for you, and then just say this simple sentence, okay? I pledge to stand up for Medicare for all. I've got a video up there as well. Go to standupformedicare.com and make sure you use the hashtag so that people hear you roar, because it's making a difference. Never let anybody tell you not to fight. That they tell you it's impossible because they don't want you to fight, because they don't want you to win. If you fight, you win. Let's keep doing it. And justdemocrats.com to get more information about how to have real progressives win within the Democratic Party. Okay, now let's go to the next story. Okay, this is about the flood. So unfortunately, disasters in Houston continue in the area, now of course spreading to beyond Houston and now even into Louisiana. The flooding has caused some viruses in the area, and we're worried about airborne illnesses, let alone the 37 people who are already confirmed dead and the tens of thousands displaced. Now we have a new disaster. The CEO of Arkema Incorporated, Richard Rowe, had warned that his chemical plant might explode. And it turns out, unfortunately, it did. Let me give you the details of that. The water knocked out the plant's generators, which cut power to the refrigeration system for the plant's sensitive materials. Now, look, this is why regulation matters. And to be fair, we have not yet, it just happened, we have not yet dove into the finer details of what regulations exist and what don't in this case. But boy, I wish there were regulations for a backup generator here, or maybe even two. Again, I don't know the costs, and I'm not saying that as a blanket statement that anything was specifically done wrong here by the company or even the government of Texas. But you can see why backup and further safety regulations could be important, because sometimes stuff like this happens. And so yes, it might cost more to have a backup, but if you don't have a backup in a chemical plant, it turns out it blows up. So multiple news reports are now saying that there have been 2 explosions at the plant and black smoke is emanating around the area. According to the Harris County Sheriff's Office, one of their deputies was hospitalized and 9 of his colleagues went to receive medical treatment following the blast. That was for Mediaite earlier in the day. Just a little bit later in the day, I saw that the count of police officers at the hospital had been moved up to 15. Now they're largely okay, and last I heard, right before we went live on the show, they'd all been released from the hospital. Thank God for that. And they explained one deputy taken to the hospital, this was from earlier in the day, after inhaling fumes from the Archem plant in Crosby. 9 others drove themselves to a hospital as a precaution. But therein lies a huge problem. Not only could you have gotten hurt by the blast in the area, but it has released dangerous chemicals into the air. So the fumes might make people sick. Look, man, as I look at that situation, I am very fearful of other chemical plants that are in the area and in other parts of the country where you could have flooding and you could have other issues. There was another plant that had exploded also in Texas a little while back that was for other reasons, and that one they definitely did not have enough regulations on. There's also nuclear power plants near water all across the country. What if there's flooding in the nuclear plants? You saw what happened in Fukushima. We have got to be a lot more cautious about this because there's a lot of lives on the line here. Finally, it's obvious that the local authorities wanted to downplay this afterwards, and they put out a response that unfortunately I think is comical. They said police have given an update on the Arkema situation where they backed away from the description of, quote, explosions at the plant. Officials described the incident as a fire and that the blasts were actually a series of pops that happened after some of the chemicals ignited due to rising temperatures. Well, when something pops and then is on fire, that's kind of called an explosion. So it is a weird thing to try to say. I mean, yes, it's on fire, and yes, there was a pop right before the fire and the chemicals are in the air, but I'm now renaming it a pop instead of an explosion. So no matter what you call it, it is incredibly dangerous. Thank God the officers there are okay, and I hope that those fumes are not a danger to the rest of the community. We have got to be safe, and part of safety is taking precautions. And sometimes it costs a little extra, but it is worth it when it saves lives. Okay, now let's go to another story coming out of the flood. Okay. So you might remember Charlie Hebdo, they're a controversial magazine in France, and they do oftentimes controversial cartoons on their front page and inside the magazine. Now, they very famously drew Muhammad on their cover several times and were attacked for it, although apparently some right-wingers have forgotten that. But now they have a very controversial one against what I guess they think is the right wing in Texas, as the flooding has happened in Houston and the nearby areas. But they didn't call them the right wing, they called them and showed them as Nazis. So the translation of that is, God exists, he drowned all the neo-Nazis of Texas. Now, that is super harsh. I don't agree with that, of course. And we don't know the politics of the people who have passed away or have been displaced. And a lot of them are poor, and they're from all different backgrounds, white, black, Latino. The storm did not discriminate. It hit one and all in that sense. And so this is obviously distasteful and obviously the wrong way to go. But it's interesting to note that when they attack Muslims in ways that Muslims found offensive, they were lauded and celebrated. In fact, I remember Ross do that from New York Times, a conservative writer, had at the time said, the right to blaspheme and otherwise give offense is essential to the liberal order. The right wing is now up in arms over this cover, and they don't find it to be essential to the liberal order to have a cover like this anymore. At the time, Ross had also said, clearly serves a free society's greater good to do these kind of offensive covers. Now that we are offended, and we are, and I am, all of a sudden, no, it's not for society's better good. You attack Muslims and you offend them, bravo, bravo. You do it to right-wing Americans in Texas, then no, not bravo, terrible, okay? So look, I think we should be consistent on that. I think drawing the Prophet Muhammad is perfectly acceptable. Charlie Hebdo is not Muslim. If you don't want to draw the Prophet Muhammad because you're Muslim, that's your religion, it's not our religion. On the other hand, we should treat their equal opportunity offensiveness the same no matter what the situation is. And obviously people do not do that. Certainly the right wing in their rage, in their support of them when they attack Muslims, and in their rage against them when they attack what they perceive as right wingers in Texas, has been very disparate. Speaking of which, we go to one more right winger. This guy, believe it or not, used to be a United States Congressman. Joe Walsh tweeted, French rag Charlie Hebdo mocks Harvey victims as neo-Nazis. Charlie Hebdo makes fun of everyone but Muslims, cowards. Oops. That is monumental ignorance. Of course, Charlie Hebdo, the main thing they're known for is doing the cartoons of Muhammad. In fact, this was one of their famous covers where they drew Muhammad, and they not only were attacked, there was a firebombing of their headquarters in 2011, but then very famously worldwide attention in January of 2015 when there was more Muslim radicals that attacked them. 12 people were killed in Charlie Hebdo's offices during that attack. To say that they don't attack Muslims is preposterous. to say that they are cowards. I mean, they might be a lot of things, and distasteful is high on that list, but cowards they are not. So, God, try to get your facts right just a tiny bit before you go screaming into the abyss. So, it is what it is, and I think that they go too far quite often, but I defend their right to do so. Okay, in both circumstances. Now, let's go to the next story. I told you I got a lot of show for you guys today. Okay, speaking of distasteful, it doesn't get any worse than this. Okay. We've got a legislator in Missouri, and it's, of course, he's a Republican, he's a state representative, Warren Love, and he's very mad that an unidentified vandal threw paint on a Confederate memorial that was in the Springfield National Cemetery. Now, do I think that they should have done that? No, I don't think they should have done that. First of all, I think the monuments should be in places like cemeteries. I think that's fine. I don't want them on public land. I don't want them in front of our courthouses or our state houses. I don't want them anywhere near the law. I don't want them as intimidation of African Americans. But I think that putting them in a cemetery makes sense, and don't take the law into your own hands. So when Representative Love says this is totally against the law, I agree with him. And if he had left it at that, of course, there'd be no issue at all. But he didn't leave it at that. He just couldn't help himself. So he added on top, I hope they are found and hung from a tall tree with a long rope. National Veterans Cemetery in Springfield, Missouri. Okay. Did it escape your attention, the lynchings that happened of African Americans, and in fact the things that the Confederates stood for and celebrated? And don't say they didn't. If a slave ran away, they would be lynched. The Confederacy wanted to protect slavery. They wrote it in almost everything they said. It was for slavery. And if you think it was for states' rights, it was for the state right to hold slaves. And part of holding slaves against their will is that you murder them if they disobey you. So I'm going to show you some disturbing pictures, but this is why it's important to have this context, because when a guy like this in today's America in 2017 saying that people who are so offended by Confederate monuments that they do something they shouldn't have done, but it's just paint, it's not actual human beings' lives, that they should be caught, and for what, a misdemeanor, should be hung by the neck. Let me show you what hanging by a neck looks like. That was a lynching from back in the day, unfortunately, not as long back as we would like. Here's another one. This is what it looks like when you are found and hung from a tall tree with a long rope, as Representative Love said, and one last one. And it is incredibly disturbing to look at, but yes, that is what happened in America. So when you reference it, it is disgusting, and you should be reprimanded for that. And, you know, from time to time, the right wingers say, "Oh, well, he's got freedom of speech." Yes, he does, but he doesn't have the right to represent all the people in his district, and he doesn't have the right to say outrageous things like this and then be popular and then be approved and be reelected. So if you live in his district, understand what this man's about. So then, of course, realizing, well, I might have made my racial animus a little too obvious, he tries to walk it back in an absurd way. He says, oh, lynchings, no, it's got nothing to do with lynchings. He says, that was an exaggerated statement that, you know, a lot of times is used in the Western world when somebody does a crime or commits theft. That's just a Western term, and I'm very much a Western man. You know, I wear a coat, you know, I dress Western, and you know, I'm the cowboy of the Capitol. All right, you take it any way you like. If you think that he thought he was celebrating the hangings of people who stole things in the West, first of all, that's not such a great thing either. But in the context of an attack on a Confederate monument, if that's not what he intended, he has a funny way of showing it. And boy, is he enormously ignorant if that is not his intention. Either way, it was a terrible thing to say. And yes, it matters. Yes, it matters if you deeply offend people because of what their ancestors went through. And not ancestors from thousands of years ago, but their grandparents and some of their parents were terrorized by this in their lifetimes. So just be a little bit more decent. It's not too much to ask for. All right, we got to take a break here, guys. But I do have more for you when we return, including the layoffs at the Blaze. What on God's green earth happened? I mean, I wonder if someone predicted that before.
Hey, what's up?
Aaron, what do you like better? The rabies or the rabies? Go.
Welcome to the Control Room, exclusive members coverage of 2IT postgame live from Rebel headquarters in sunny Los Angeles. So Jason, the air is electric after yesterday's postgame.
He's talking about Miami. You know, the only thing about this, Jason, is we've heard the Miami stories. I'm looking at Kasperian's interest here. She's giving him the cordial glance to the side, but I just don't know if it's really there.
Oh, that's where the vagina is.
Okay, that joke landed like Apollo 13 there. And then Kasperian gives him the courtesy laugh, gives him the Edwin wave.
Had you had sex at that point when you took that class?
Anyways, so...
Hold on a minute. He's found an opening. Is he finding his way to come back, Jason? Unbelievable. Jack Dugan coming back. With a comment, no one would have seen this coming.
And he's in the mood, and there's some music in the background. He's got the sideburns, he's got the long hair in her 30s.
He won't fan himself. There's no way he's ready to. I mean, I've expected.
She's like, well, that was something.
He's got it.
Okay.
It's unbelievable.
Every dog has its day, and this dog is having the best day of his damn life.
That was an outstanding postgame. If tonight's postgame is anything like last night's, we were in for another.
Exactly right, Francis. And don't forget to check out the TYT postgame after the Young Turks every weekday on tytnetwork.com/memberslive.
guys, I'm back on the Young Turks here. Lubza writes in, I don't know why I like Lubza as a name a lot, referring to the chemical plant explosion where they said it was a pop and then fire. He writes in, the very definition of an explosion, geniuses. Brian Newton says about the last story we did on the lynchings, the ignorance of the right knows zero bounds. And I've got more on that in a second, Brian. And Jared Jackson normally sits in here, but he actually wrote in and on the Kamala Harris story. And he says, if we progressives fight for politicians to back progressive ideals and finally get one to, then respond by trying to push them away by calling them frauds and con artists, some of us have to wonder if you actually support progressive ideals. You can hold them accountable to follow through without bashing them for finally coming our way. Are we fighting for progress or to simply complain? Our desire to breathe fire is useless when we start setting fires to our own houses. Don't lose sight, continue to fight, not sabotage. Okay, God bless J.R., that's a solid ass opinion. Okay, go this way. Okay, Fox and Friends knows that Donald Trump watches. They like that fact. And so every once in a while they like to pat Donald on the head and be like, oh my God, Donald, you're so right. So their latest example of that is they had one of the Republican congressmen who wants to end the funding for the special counsel investigation into Donald Trump and his team. They had him on the show and they all had a big circle, something or other, where they were like, oh, yeah, the investigation, oh, Donald, this gotta stop. We're with you, Mr. Trump, it's gotta stop. So they have Representative Ron DeSantis on, he's the one that proposed to stop it in the first place. And Brian Kilmeade is very excited about this, let's watch.
He's proposing legislation to kill the special counsel Robert Mueller's probe into the presidential's ties to Russia 6 months after it passes. It seems reasonable. Congressman, 6 months is enough. Plus, you had James Comey investigating prior to this. Where's this proposal going?
Well, Brian, what we want to do is say very clearly, we don't want to fund fishing expeditions.
Oh, unless they're about Benghazi or Whitewater. All right, I'm gonna get to that in a second. Don't miss those facts. But right now, it's 6 months, come on. I mean, we've been looking into this for a whole 6 months. Like I said, I'm gonna tell you how long Whitewater and Benghazi lasted. Okay, let's keep going though.
My amendment basically says, look, this thing needs to be limited to the campaign in Russia, and it needs to have an end date. If you haven't produced evidence of a crime after almost 2 years of investigating, because Comey investigated for a year before Mueller was appointed, then at some point we have to move on with the American people's business.
At some point we've got to move on. All right, I can't help it. You know how many committee hearings they had on Benghazi? 33. I mean, at some point, we got to move on. Every one of the committees that looked into it was led by Republicans. They all concluded there was nothing illegal and they had nothing to charge anyone on and they couldn't find wrongdoing. But at some point, we got to move on. You know, I mean, we've had a couple of seconds here, but they're in the middle of the investigation. They're in the middle of a grand jury. Just to wrap up the grand jury, come on. What are you trying to hide? If you don't have anything to hide, why are you in a panic to move on while there's a grand jury listening to evidence? More.
Does it concern you what you've known so far, the fact that they raid Paul Manafort's house, they're looking at his international context? Does it bother you that Robert Mueller reportedly conferring with the arch enemy of President Trump, the Attorney General Schneiderman, they've been going at each other for years. Now they're conferring directly. Does that bother you or encourage you that they're trying to get to the end of this?
It concerns me because a lot of the Manafort stuff happened way before the campaign. Maybe he did stuff 2-3 years ago, but that's not really, you don't need a special counsel for that.
So let's get this right. He says it should be limited to the campaign, not anything that happened before the campaign, not anything that happened after the campaign. No, I want to really, really limit it. I mean, Manafort, who was his campaign manager, maybe he committed crimes with the Russians, but don't look into it. Don't look into it. How about Trump's financial dealings? No, under no circumstances. What are you in a panic for? I thought the guy says he's got $10 billion and that everything's on the up and up and he's such a great businessman. You should want them to look into it, and I'm sure Robert Mueller will come out and go, my God, what a successful business executive this guy is. There's nothing untoward at all. No, you're afraid of what they're gonna find. Of course. And by the way, Schneiderman being involved is very important. Why? He's the New York State Attorney General. Donald Trump, as president, can issue federal pardons. So if they turns out his son, Donald Trump Jr., or Kushner, or Manafort, who were all in one of the Russian meetings where, by the way, there's a news story out today. They say Manafort, in one of his texts, talked about donations, and next to the RNC when they were in a conversation, in a sentence with the RNC when they were in with the Russians. So I don't know, and of course it's just a leak for now. That's why let them finish the investigation. You don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know the secret evidence that they have or that they're sharing with a grand jury, and neither do you. And you don't know if it exonerates him or says that he's culpable. So, but it's interesting that now they're talking about possible Russian donations. And by the way, yes, that would be a crime. It is illegal for foreigners to give money to politicians, especially running for president. So let's see how it turns out. They don't want it to, but what they can't do, what Trump can't do, is pardon someone if they are charged with a state crime. So if Manafort, for example, broke state laws in New York and now they're investigating his money laundering for the Russians, well, there's no get out of jail free card for that. That's why Republican congressmen like DeSantis and Fox News are in a panic. We gotta wrap this up. And don't talk to Schneiderman. Don't. Oh, really? Oh, he's his nemesis. Why? Because he investigates him. Okay. Last one for you guys here.
Rosenstein seems to be a gift to Democrats and anti-Trumpers that just want to see this president not be successful. The way this was written seems criminal.
Well, that's the thing, Brian. What happens, I don't think this Russia stuff, I've never seen evidence of a crime, but I'm not worried about that.
That was a J.R. Jackson special. Their investigating of the crimes is the crime. Okay, now, these guys want to end this in 6 months. Let me show you how long Whitewater took. Their investigation started in January of 1994, lasted to September of 2000. Not 6 months. 6 years. And by the way, at the end, what did they get? These guys who were talking about, don't look at Trump's finances. Don't look at Manafort before the campaign or after the campaign. They found out that Bill Clinton had done nothing wrong in Whitewater. And so having nothing to do with that land deal in Arkansas, they're like, oh yeah, but he slept with this random woman over here. Ha ha, got you. On a completely unrelated thing that had nothing to do with financial malfeasance or anything along those lines. And these guys have the nerve to talk about an investigation that's a fishing expedition? Are you kidding me? Let's look at Benghazi. There was 10 different organizations and committees looking into Benghazi and having investigations. 2 at the bottom are not congressional, but 8 out of the 10 were congressional. You know that they only did 21 hearings on 9/11? They did 33 hearings on Benghazi. Unbelievable. And how long did it last? From September of 2012 to December of 2016. Not 6 months, but 4 years. Fine, you don't want to use the Whitewater example, we'll take Benghazi. After Robert Mueller looks into Trump for 4 years, we'll say, okay, I guess that was enough. I'm just going by the Republican standard. That's what the Republicans did on Benghazi, so I guess 4 years is the rule now. Oh, you don't like your own standards. Oh, funny how that works out. Okay, now let's go to the Blaze. Okay. Well, sad to report today that the Blaze has had layoffs. Now, a little bit of schadenfreude here, I have to be honest. And I'm going to show you some of the predictions I made about this. But of course, as the actual human beings, most of whom are total right-wingers, but not all, have been laid off. So not everybody. In a note published by Beck to the Blaze's website, the company founder said that more than 20% of the combined workforce of Mercury Radio Arts and the Blaze have been let go. Mercury Radio Arts is Glenn Beck's organization, which the Blaze is a part of. Now remember, this is the second round of massive layoffs. The Blaze made a similar move last year as they let go of an estimated 40 people in April of 2016. Now look, it's not just a ha-ha told you, although I did. All right, fine. I'll do a little told you here, a little one, to start with at least. This is me from yesterday. I had no idea this was coming, but this is what I said yesterday on an unrelated story. To be fair, it is hard out there for not only pimps, but also for conservative commentators, because if you're not on Fox News, there's the Blaze, which is ablaze. It's about to go down, and it's in financial ruins. So, look, the reason why it's an important story is because conservatives always yell at liberals like, please, you guys don't know how to run businesses. We're geniuses over here, we know how to run business. Not the case. Almost all of conservative media, and honestly, with the exception of Fox News is actually a real business and they are very profitable. But with that notable exception, almost everything else is in deep financial trouble, does not make money, loses a ton of money, and often just propped up by right-wing billionaires. Even Rush Limbaugh, oh, legendary Rush Limbaugh. No, he gets a ton of money in quote-unquote advertisements from right-wing think tanks. That's a way of keeping him on air to do propaganda. And now Tomi Lahren just went to Fox News. That was the story yesterday. She used to be at The Blaze. And where did she stop in between? At Trump's super PAC, where she was literally paid to do propaganda. Where does The Blaze end and a super PAC begin and Fox News end? You know, it seems to be one big continuum. Again, Fox News does do a decent job of actually serving their audience, understanding and running it as a business, as opposed to all these other publications. Breitbart loses a tremendous amount of money, is totally unsustainable. Almost none of their publications would be in business if they didn't have rich sugar daddies who wanted tax cuts and wanted marketing for those tax cuts and deregulation. Now, I've been pointing this out for a long time, so I can't resist one more clip here to show you that these businesses are not sustainable. And by the way, when Beck came out of the gates and said, oh yeah, I've got 300,000 subscribers right away, it was never true. He never moved the number. Years later, he still said it was 300,000. It wasn't 300,000 back then, it isn't 300,000 today. You have got to stop listening to right-wing commentators as if they're telling you things that are true. They're just doing propaganda, including for themselves. None of that stuff is verifiable, and the fact that this guy is taken seriously is unreal. So this is me a while back explaining that phenomenon, and you'll see the things I got right and wrong. Watch.
I know I shouldn't do this. The reason I shouldn't do this is because I love predictions. I think I have an excellent track record on predictions. When it comes to timing of predictions, that track record is not as good. All right, 18 months. I'm putting it on the clock. JR, go ahead, start the clock. There's no clock to start. 18 months before we hear, well, you see what had happened was, and then this happened, but then we didn't know, but everything was going great, but then he has an enormous staff over there. I know how much things cost, I know how much things bring in, and it doesn't add up. And so my guess is at some point within the next 18 months, they're gonna come out and be like, well, the Blaze was going great, and then this happened, and then that happened, but what? No, Cenk wasn't right. It was something else that happened in the meanwhile, but and we're closing up shop. I could be wrong.
Well, I haven't been proven right yet, and I'm gonna do a double told you there, and then one is great irony, I will grant you. I was right that the Blaze was in massive trouble, and I was right that I would get the timing wrong. Okay, bounds of reason. Okay, but like I told you in the beginning of that clip, be wary of my timing, although my timing yesterday on that clip was pretty good. But yes, this is not the end. Unfortunately, this is the beginning of the troubles for the Blaze and 2 rounds of layoffs, but they're not nearly done yet. They've got to power down massively because they cannot, the things they had said about the amount of revenue they have and the amount of supporters they have and the amount of viewers they have was never true. They're just not that large. Okay, last story for you guys real quick. So you know the White House has petitions. You could start a petition, and then if it gets to 100,000, the White House is supposed to respond to it. The number one petition right now is to try to get Donald Trump some degree of accountability and to have him turn over his tax returns. That's got over 1 million signatures on it. And of course, the White House has not responded to that. They're like, whatever, Obama started this thing, we don't have to respond to it. But they might respond to one that's surging now. That's at number 12 most popular petition on the White House's website. And that is a petition to rob George Soros. Not kidding. So I'll give you the details here. Law News explains, according to the whitehouse.gov website, a petition to declare George Soros a terrorist and seize all of his related organizations' assets under RICO and NDAA law is one of the most popular White House petitions. It is ranked number 12, pulling in about 60,000 signatures since it was created just 10 days ago. Now, let me give you the exact wording of it in case you think, oh, fake news. Anyone who does news can't be trusted. So, no, you could read the petition for yourself, started by a guy named DB. It says, whereas George Soros has willfully and on an ongoing basis attempted to destabilize and otherwise commit acts of sedition against the United States and its citizens, the Department of Justice should immediately declare George Soros and all of his organizations and staff members to be domestic terrorists and have all of his personal organizational wealth and assets seized under civil asset forfeiture law. 60,000 people signed that petition. That's unreal. There is no end to how crazy right-wingers are. So, number one, you guys are the ones that said, oh, socialist, communist, Maoist. Oh, next thing you know, you're gonna take rich people's money and just steal it. That's what this petition does. George Soros is deeply capitalist. Yes, he thinks that you should be decent to one another, and he donates to progressive causes because he thinks we shouldn't rip each other to shreds and that everybody should have equal rights. They're like, oh yeah, Maoist, let's steal his property, yeah. You know, he's the 30th richest man in the world, I believe. He's got $25 billion, and the right wing are like, yes, time to be Maoist and steal it. I mean, their projection is record-breaking. Oh, the left just wants to take your money. Let's take Soros's money. And they called him a terrorist. That is despicable. You know, they keep talking about him as if he's some sort of, sometimes they'll call him a fascist, sometimes they call him a communist. So let me tell you the true record of George Soros. Now, this first part's from Wikipedia, but you can go to the original documents. There's whole books about this and read up on his history. Soros was 13 years old in March of 1944 when Nazi Germany occupied Hungary. Jewish children were barred from attending school by the Nazis, and Soros and other school children were made to report to the Jewish Council, which had been established during the occupation. The original family name of George Soros was not Soros, it was Schwartz. They changed it to Soros to hide from the Nazis. They went underground and pretended to be Christians. This guy, as a teenager, had to make sure that he wasn't murdered by the Nazis. And some people have the gall to call him a fascist or a terrorist. It is disgusting. And then on the charge that he's a communist, that is hilarious. One of the legendary capitalists literally in world history. And you can take that however you want. You can see that as a positive or negative, but he ain't nobody's communist. In fact, this is from Brendan Murphy writing for The Atlantic all the way back in the 1990s. He has also been exerting significant and salutary influence in Eastern Europe since the mid-1980s when he started distributing scholarships and photocopiers to dissident intellectuals in Hungary and other Soviet satellite nations, helping to set the fuse for the implosion of communism at the end of the decade. He fought communism, he helped to defeat communism. So get your facts straight. And next time you want to rob someone, think twice about who that person is and what your so-called principles are. This is one of the most disgusting petitions I've ever seen, to take a good man and to smear his name like that and to try to take all of his property away. And think about what the Nazis did to the Jews in places like occupied Hungary where George Soros was. They would find out who they are and then they would seize all their property. And this is America in the year 2017. Disgusting. All right, we'll be right back.
We talk about TYT Army being so strong. Usually they help us run our show. Now they're gonna help us run the country.
Oh. Like this.
It's time that we reclaim democracy for the people.
We had a huge victory for Wolfpack.
When Lincoln said this was a country by, of, and for, he said of the people, not of corporations.
Our representatives don't represent us. Whoa, democracy!
United, we are too strong. Stop this
thousands of volunteers, and you could be among them.
With Wolfpack, the mission is so clear.
Money is killing our democracy.
96% of Americans want it.
When you get the power back, oh, that feels good. This is just the beginning. Let's go get them, man. Up and at them. Knock, knock.
We're coming for them!
Wolf-pack.com.
Brett has a cat. Yeah. I'm moving away from the controversial stuff we were discussing prior to this going live to talking about pussy. Because it's a pussy cat.
Here's the thing. I think that cats are dumber. Everyone thinks that cats are smarter because they found a way to just like not care about you and have a home and food.
Right.
But cats are stupid. They're like children. Like cats, everything they do, it's like, cat, do you want to take a bath right now?
Yeah.
Because you're fucking gross. And they're like babies and like toddlers. We're like, no, this is how I do it.
Yeah.
I just lick it. And you're like, are you sure that's a good idea? Because I think you might get hair caught in your throat. And the cat's like, no, it's fine.
Ugh.
They're stupid. And then like they're just like babies where it's like I pooped. And then it's like, did you want to poop outside? No, I poop here, it's fine because I bury it. Like they're idiots. They're like children. And then dogs are like husbands in sitcoms.
Why?
Where they're just like, listen, when do we eat? And I love you for that. Also, I'm gonna try to have sex with you. If you don't want it right now, just roll up a newspaper and hit me.
That's so true. Although Charlie never tries to hump me, always tries to hump Christian. But you know what?
What are you jealous by that?
No, I'm not jealous. I just think it's interesting because I think Charlie might be a gay dog and I love him no matter what.
I'm back on the Young Turks. Cenk and Anna with you guys. Amazing day full of lots of news. Although I am going to read one YouTube super chat that I believe was from yesterday. I'm very confident. It's from Nick Spiropoulos. He said yesterday, Anna's supporting the hot librarian look today. Whoa.
Everyone was buzzing about my look yesterday, which was funny because I didn't put much thought behind it. Yeah.
No, I agree with at least the librarian part.
Okay. Thank you guys. I really appreciate the nice comments, especially the comments about my glasses, which I've now warmed up to. I'm trying to do the show without them today, and I'm thinking maybe that's a bad decision, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay, real quick, some tweets. The liberal Hoosier writes, and Soros pretend to be Christian. The right wing should know all about that. Oh, nice burn on the right wing there, I get it. And Cynthia Townsend said, the blaze going down while TYT's on the rise. I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying. Anyway, members of the day who actually power our show and are real are Mary Beth Kramer and David Bugg. So look, guys, that's why I tell you guys you make all the difference, because you're what propels us, and they don't have the same kind of audience. They just don't.
Did you know that there's a documentary about David Bugg?
No.
Yeah, it's called A Bug's Life.
Oh. You know, I should have seen that coming. What kind of an amateur am I? Okay, she is in a great mood here. I told you you got sleep and you're in a good mood. All right, we'll have a great post game for you guys today too. And of course, Aggressive Progressives tonight. Become a member. You get all of that. tytnetwork.com/join. All right, I got a quick update for you guys. Come to me. Okay. An update of an update. Sheriff David Clark is now expected, according to latest reports, to join President Trump's administration. I was hoping he'd go to prison, and that's why he had stepped down as sheriff in Milwaukee. But now we don't know this for sure, because that story is developing right now as we speak. Remember, Department of Homeland Security had rejected him back in June, and then he came out and was like, oh, I didn't want the job anyway. He had gone on TV, said, oh, I'm gonna get the job, I'm gonna get the job. And then when they said, no, you're not, he's like, I didn't want it. So apparently there's a new development on it. I hope that this story, the latest report, is not true by Politico, and that in fact he's under investigation. That's my hope. But right now, Politico reporting that he might join the administration in a different role, which would make sense because Donald Trump loves hateful sheriffs. So between Sheriff Joe Arpaio and Sheriff David Clark, probably the two worst sheriffs we've ever had, and hence welcome in the Trump administration. Okay, Casper. Go.
All right. A 27-year police veteran has been fired from Cobb County, Georgia, after he was caught on dash cam surveillance saying something that should shock and upset most Americans. Now, I don't want to give too much away, but before we go to the video showing what he said, let me give you some context. He apparently pulled over a female driver for a routine traffic stop. There was some sort of traffic violation, and apparently the woman was afraid to move her hands or put her hands down because she was fearful that any sudden movement would result in her getting shot. Now, his reaction to her refusing to do as he said is what eventually got him fired. Take a look.
I can't call them if you don't open the door.
Why can't you?
Because I will not put my...
Use your phone. It's in your lap right there.
I just don't want to put my hands down. I'm really sorry.
You're just really wrong.
No. I've just seen way too many videos of problems.
But you're not black. Remember, we only kill black people. Yeah, we only kill black people, right? All the videos you've seen, have you seen any white people get killed? You have.
I've seen an 18-year-old white boy get killed 23 seconds.
Yeah.
So the cop in the video is, or was, Police Lieutenant Greg Abbott. That's his name, which is kind of amazing. And he has been fired, and that's according to the police chief in Cobb County, who gave a press conference today. And he did have some strong words for him as well. Now, first, let's go to the police officer's lawyer, who claims, quote, he was attempting to de-escalate a situation involving an uncooperative passenger. In context, his comments were clearly aimed at attempting to gain compliance by using the passenger's own statements and reasoning to avoid making an arrest. However, Mike Register, who is the police chief in Cobb County, disagrees. He said no matter what context it was said, it shouldn't have been said. And again, Abbott, a 27-year veteran of the police department, will be removed from the force, and that's according to Mike Register, who is the police chief in the area.
Well, if you believe in respecting the police, I'm positive you're going to respect the decision of the police chief that this man should be fired. So, first of all, I don't know what's in Abbott's head. I don't know if he was saying that just straightforward, yeah, that's what we do. We shoot black people. Why would we shoot you? Or if he meant it as, like, you saw the videos online or you saw the videos, those are the ones that are claiming we only shoot black people. So what are you worried about? You only saw black people getting shot, right? So he might have meant it that way. That's why the police chief doing what he did is a huge indicator. Because now it might be that he was like, this is not, one, if you're being the most generous to Abbott, you might say the police chief was like, this is bad PR, I don't want to deal with it. Okay, another possibility is, look, even if the guy didn't mean it that way, we can't have people in this county thinking that we are going to apply justice differently to different races and have this idea out there that there are cops who think, no, don't worry, if you're white, you're fine, but black people, we will shoot. And the third possibility is that he talked to Abbott and he was like, oh, this is a bad dude. And he did mean it, and I gotta get rid of him. Right. So he didn't give exact reasons other than what Anna just read to you, but the fact that he did take that action is clearly indicative.
Right, I mean, look, none of us can say for certain what's in that police lieutenant's head as he's making those statements. Some have argued that he was just being sarcastic, but those are not the type of statements you make considering the type of climate that we're living in right now, considering the type of debates that are going on in the country regarding police violence and excessive force. And so it was a bad move on his part. But I think there's another component to that video that should concern you, and I think it's telling to say the least. So the woman who was pulled over for that traffic stop was a white woman, and she was fearful of the cop. She did not trust the cop. She was worried that he wasn't there to protect her or to protect and serve. And so think about that type of climate that exists in the United States, where the people that we hire as police officers that we pay with our taxpayer money are individuals that are no longer trusted because of what we're seeing in the media, because of what we're seeing with all of these police shootings where unarmed people get gunned down. So I would be afraid as well, right? And so that's something that everyone should take into consideration. If we want the feelings toward cops to change, then obviously the training needs to change, the type of rhetoric we hear from cops needs to change. There needs to be an entire reform for things to change.
Yeah, look, it's possible that she had been doing something wrong, speeding, drinking, driving. We don't know that context, but the context overall for the country is one that Anna just described, and it's not. Look, it is disproportionately African Americans, as the stats bear out. But do white people get shot by cops for having a slight wrong reaction in a nanosecond? Well, of course we know that happens. In Minnesota, that mom got shot when she called for help from the cops, a white woman there. You had the white guy in Miami, you had the white guy that came out of a car after he was on a high-speed chase. I mean, of course, white unarmed people also get shot. And it's for the 100th time in a row, it's the training where we've told the cops, if you're even 1% afraid of anything, if they move their hands up or down, put them down. So now we're all jittery. Anytime you get pulled over by a cop and he gives you directions on what to do with your hands, there is some reasonable fear of what might happen next. And the way to allay that fear is not to tell her, don't worry, we only shoot black people. At a minimum, that is incredibly poor judgment.
All right, moving on to some other news. A federal judge has ruled in favor of a preliminary injunction against Texas's tough sanctuary cities law. Now, Senate Bill 4, which is the law in question, essentially forces police officials to ask individuals that they suspect of being undocumented immigrants for their paperwork to prove that they are in the country legally. And it has a number of other elements that this federal judge deemed unconstitutional. Now, this doesn't mean that he's completely blocked it. It just means that there will be a stay or a preliminary injunction until this case bears out in court. So under the law, Texas could fine police and counties that don't honor federal requests to hold people jailed on non-immigration or non-immigration offenses longer for possible deportation. It also ensures that police chiefs and sheriffs could face removal from office and criminal charges for not complying with federal detainer requests. So I want to stop there for a second, because when we talk about sanctuary cities, the way that it's often discussed in the media is misleading. It makes it seem as though, oh, in sanctuary cities, local cops refuse to work with ICE officials or federal agents, but that's actually not the case. What ICE agents ask for is for certain municipalities to just detain people for an indefinite period of time until they can prove that that individual is in the country illegally. Now that takes a considerable amount of resources. Our prison system and our jails are obviously, over full. And so certain cities have sued against that because they're like, we can't just detain people indefinitely. This doesn't make sense.
So there's actually several different components. Sanctuary city is not a real designation. So there's no definition of it in the federal government. And so some of the things that they do, I totally agree with in terms of sanctuary cities. Some I'm less sure about. So for example, they say, look, we're not going to pull people over like Sheriff Joe Arpaio did in Texas and ask them for their papers. One, it's not in our jurisdiction. If they're in the country illegally, that's a federal case, not a state or a local case. Second of all, we can't pull people over unless we have some sort of probable cause, and you look Latino is not probable cause. So if that's what you call a sanctuary city where they direct their cops not to be racist, great, I love it, I'm totally in favor of it. Now there are other parts of what they call a sanctuary city where sometimes ICE will say, okay, you arrested that guy on a different charge, but we have reason to believe that he's in the country illegally, hold him. Now that's where it gets to be a tougher issue, partly what Anna was referring to there, because, well, look, that's your jurisdiction, not my jurisdiction, and I don't want my taxpayers paying for it. And plus, one of the things that happens is if you turn the local cops into ICE officials, then the people in that area are more reluctant to talk to the cops and report crimes.
Exactly.
So it's actually the cops in those cities who say, no, we don't want to serve as a holding pen for ICE because that's counterproductive to our interests as local police officers.
So to be honest with you, it's counterproductive for almost everyone's interest, with the exception of people who have absolutely no compassion for anyone, right? So what I mean by that is, they have reason to believe that that individual might be in the country illegally, right? And so they ask these cities and these cops to detain these people indefinitely until they get around to investigating the situation. It takes a long time to investigate the situation or get to that particular case. And what if that person is in the country legally? And in a lot of cases, that is what happens.
So if the federal government did this right, then we would have a lot less of an issue. So my proposal would be, hey, listen, if you think somebody's in the country illegally, and their sentence is up at a local level, go get them. Put them in a federal holding facility. And by the way, give them due process, which includes a speedy trial. So if you think that they have broken the law or they're here illegally, well then hurry up and handle that in a constitutional way. If you say, I'd just like to be able to hold somebody, whether they were positive or were not positive that they're in the country illegally, and I'd like to hold them for a long, long time, and I wouldn't like to pay for it, I want you to hold them and you to pay for it. Well, that makes no sense at all. So now when Texas passes a law saying, the cities are not allowed to do any of this, they must follow the orders of the federal government, even though that's not their jurisdiction. And if they don't, we're gonna put those cops in prison. Wait, I thought you guys were for cops.
No, it's amazing. So the cops could potentially face criminal charges if they refuse to comply under this law, right? And then the other part of it is, even if it's an elected official who refuses to comply with what federal officials want, that elected official could be taken out of office based on the wording of this law. And so the federal judge in this case, who decided to issue this preliminary injunction, was like, yeah, there's a lot of unconstitutional components here. And so as a result, I'm gonna go ahead and pause until this case bears out in court. So keep in mind, there were several cities within Texas that sued against this Senate bill. That included, let's go to graphic 6, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, and Dallas. And Manny Fernandez from the New York Times writes that lawyers for those suing the state said prohibiting local officials from endorsing a particular viewpoint violates the First Amendment. Judge Garcia, the federal judge who ruled in this case, wrote that the plaintiffs were likely to succeed with that argument when the case goes to trial. So there is a First Amendment issue here as well, because the federal government is obviously attempting to take action against local government over a difference in political opinion.
Well, I know that the right wing is going to support the judge because they care deeply about freedom of speech. And so when one of their own wants to get paid a lot of money to speak on a college campus, that is a freedom of speech issue. When Nazis march in Charlottesville, that's a freedom of speech issue.
Right.
When local cops want to have their freedom of speech, no, we're against cops and we won't let them speak. That's right. That is the conservative position in Texas. And a federal judge has said, no, that's unconstitutional.
Exactly. In fact, I just want to read you his quote because I think the judge's quote is important and it gives you a sense of where he's coming from. So Judge Garcia writes, the government may disagree with certain viewpoints, but they cannot ban them just because they are inconsistent with the view that the government seeks to promote. Senate Bill 4 clearly targets and seeks to punish speakers based on their viewpoint on local immigration enforcement policy.
Damn. Well, I'm sure the right wing will turn around now and say blue lives matter, blue speech matters, and let's protect the local cops against this overreach by the state government.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
Looking forward to your agreement on this issue.
So another real quick thing that you should keep in mind, this case obviously will be appealed and it will go to an appeals court in New Orleans, which is known for being incredibly conservative. And so it's not looking good for people who are against Senate Bill 4 in Texas, but you never know. There might be some fairness with these judges.
So far so good, but we'll keep you updated.
Yep, all right.
Next.
Let's talk about the original woke bae, Neil deGrasse Tyson. I love it, all right. Neil deGrasse Tyson decided to speak out against those who deny climate change, but do believe what scientists have to say when it comes to expecting huge flooding, like the flooding from Hurricane Harvey, or the solar eclipse that recently happened. So he tweeted out, don't see much denial of NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration climate scientists who have predicted Hurricane Harvey's devastating path into Texas. Now, of course, he tweets that and Twitter does what Twitter is best known for. People start throwing feces at him, right? Because they can't handle it, they got their feelings hurt. So he decided to clarify what he meant in an interview with TMZ. He said, what I should have said was NOAA scientists rather than NOAA climate scientists. The point is that we have people in denial of emergent scientific consensus. That was the real point of the tweet. He also says, if you're in denial of global warming, you're in denial of objective scientific truths. That's not a political stance, that's an ignorant stance. So to clarify, he's not saying, Hurricane Harvey was because of climate change. It was certainly exacerbated by it, but he didn't say that climate change is what caused the storm. He's just trying to say, you can't pick and choose what you believe from scientists. You can't say, oh yeah, I believe everything scientists say, except for this climate change issue. I don't believe anything they say.
So it's the same guys at NOAA.
Right.
So when, if you're a conservative down in Houston and you hear the storm is coming and it's going to drop this many inches of rain, you go, oh, okay, I should get out of the way or I need protection. And you trust those scientists. And you're right, you should, because the storm did come and they were right about what it would do, okay? Now, when those same scientists turn around and go, by the way, climate change is real, you go, oh, no way, that's a Chinese hoax, right? No, but wait, it's the same guys. Why would they make that part of it up? No, don't believe it. The oil companies told our politicians to say that it's fake, so it must be fake. So if you made that mistake when it comes to, and I usually use the example of gravity, gravity's a Chinese hoax. I'm gonna step off this building and see what happens. Well, science is gonna find a way to correct you. And it's unfortunately finding a way to correct us on climate change. And if you didn't listen to the scientists on the path of the hurricane, that would have been a terrible mistake. And if you don't listen to them on the overall macro picture, which is that climate change makes storms more severe. Well, that's the situation where we're in right now. So I'd go further than Neil deGrasse Tyson. So he's absolutely right in pointing that out. He's right about his other example as well. When the scientists said the solar eclipse is going to happen, people weren't like, oh, no way, that's not going to happen. I don't believe that. When the same scientists say, hey, climate change is happening, here are the facts behind it, here's the temperature going up. Yes, some people go, temperatures, I don't believe that. Sea levels, they're half a foot higher in Houston than were a couple of decades ago. No, they're not, the Chinese made that up, right?
I love that climate deniers are usually having a seizure while they're stating their denial for climate change.
Right. So the only place that I'm going a little further than Tyson, and I'm not going further than the science, is that, look, I'm not, the storms have always been around, and it's not like there were no storms before climate change and now there are storms. That is a total purposeful lie about how climate change works. But yes, I would be more specific about this storm. It is very, very likely, just as earlier predicted, that this storm is more severe because of climate change. Exactly what the scientists predicted and exactly what happened.
Anyway, I think Neil deGrasse Tyson is a national treasure, and I dislike anyone who has anything negative to say about him. Just want to put that out there.
So there,
okay.
She got you.
Gotcha.
You have been disliked if you disagree with Tyson. Well, and my last words on it is, science doesn't care about your feelings.
Yeah, that's true, very true.
It's true either way.
Yeah. All right, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, more stories for you, including an insane fight at a Walmart over a notebook. What happened?
Go.
Complex subject. Nobody knew that healthcare could be so complicated.
You said I had small hands. They're not smaller. I never heard that one before.
Now you guys are gonna think, especially my early behind the scenes footage, like I already went and looked at the comments in the member section. You guys, oh, he's high, he's drunk. I swear to you, I'm not. Well, I just tell you if I am, right? And so I get goofy in the behind the scenes stuff.
What's the need for the butter with this pretzel? This is already super fattening it up. You don't need to put butter on this thing. Why'd they make me do it, Bitsy? Why'd they make me do it?
Hey, I'm just saying that this is known as the rear end guy. There's no way that every person he knows doesn't call him the rear end guy. I want you guys to see if you could see the lightning bugs. Whoa. Light them up. Light them up.
Is it true, Ritzy? I will now watch it later.
Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat. Imagine him, isn't it? Hey, Kiki Cat. Kiki Cat. All right, this is Kiki Cat signing out.
go. I mean, we're back. Okay. Mark Matthews writes in, cops shoot a black person, found innocent despite evidence and keeps job. Cop says we only shoot black people, gets fired. Fair and interesting. Santos writes, Bugs Life, Anna, you've just lost every right to make fun of Jenk's cheesy jokes. No, that's it, sorry. All your rights to make fun of my cheesy jokes have been obliterated and taken away from you.
I haven't even ever seen that movie.
Yeah.
It's always on the table and I always shoot it down.
Yeah. Oh, it's still on the table after all this time. Well, it is a bug. All right, we move forward.
All right. Okay. Really, I'm that bad? Come on. Okay. The school season has begun, and of course, parents are out looking for products to buy for their kids to make sure they're prepared. Supplies, notebooks, pencils. You guys get it, right?
Yeah, no, they get it, Anna, definitely. Erasers, magic markers, maybe crayons.
Maybe even highlighters, you never know. Depends on the age of the kids. Now, things got a little violent at a Walmart in Michigan. Apparently, a number of women were fighting over a notebook. It was the last notebook, and as a result, some of them began pulling one another's hair. They got physical. One girl was going to buy a notebook. There was one left. Some pushing resulted. They began to argue who was the rightful purchaser of that notebook. Well, things actually took a turn for the worst when someone actually pulled a gun out. One of the younger women was having her hair pulled. Her mother was there, and her mother pulled out her gun and threatened the women attacking her daughter with that gun. And police were called, and things luckily were better after that. But really, you're gonna pull out a gun. You're gonna pull someone's hair and get physical over a 10-cent notebook that you can buy on Amazon and have it delivered that day if you wanted to.
Okay, first of all, The Last Notebook sounds like a movie. Like, oh, The Last Notebook out this summer. Anyway, second of all, come on, really, a notebook at Walmart? Like, no disrespect, but there will be other notebooks at Walmart. Like, you're gonna live, and this is not the thing to get violent over. But the important thing here is, okay, look, fights happen. That's fine, and fights have always happened. It's a little bit like climate change. Storms have always happened, but climate change makes them more severe. Fights have always happened. Guns make them more severe.
Right. So the cop who spoke to the press, Scott Beatons is his name. He says that she was licensed to carry a legal, lawful gun owner. And it worries me because I think people who are reasonable, responsible adults should have access to guns as long as they purchase it legally. They don't go out and buy it at a gun show. But I mean, even the most law-abiding citizens lose their temper and they act like that. Really, you're gonna threaten someone's life over this? Here's what you do, you walk away. Okay, you realize what you're fighting over, you walk away, that's it. Done. All right, you want the notebook? Fine, take the notebook. I'll find another place to get it for my kid. It's not the end of the world. But look, this more than anything shows me what human nature is like, right? And we're all animals. We've all been trained to be somewhat civilized, but sometimes we lose our judgment. Sometimes we lose some of that training and we act like animals. It's like a buffet at a wedding, right? Once that buffet is open, people lose it.
Yeah, I mean, like all that Black Friday stuff that happens after Thanksgiving drives me crazy. Like, oh my God, it's 28% off. I'm gonna lose my mind. Just calm down for a second, okay? But look, that's the thing about guns. They make every situation more hostile because you've all lost your tempers, and if at a moment that you lost your temper, you happen to have a gun on you, that could be potentially disastrous. And that's why I actually want way more gun regulation than Anna does, because guns don't make you safer. It's a fact. You look at the stats, and we've shown you the stats over and over. If you have a gun, you're more likely to have that gun used against you, either by yourself by accident or by a family member. Sometimes by accident, sometimes domestic violence, and by the way, suicide happens way more frequently when there's a gun in the house, and it is successful way more frequently when there's a gun in the house. So you think a gun is there to protect you, but more often than not, it does a lot more damage to you and to people around you. So don't bring even if you got a concealed carry permit, it's a disastrous idea to bring your gun to a Walmart where you might have to fight over the last notebook.
Isn't that crazy? So the whole point of this was the concealed carry. The cop came out and said, well, she had a concealed carry permit, so I guess it's okay. That's the line.
No,
Therefore,
no, it's
this
not
person
okay.
who was about to shoot someone in the middle of Walmart over a 19-cent notebook, it's okay because they had a concealed carry permit. So also, what else it does to the psyche is when you're about to get into these fights, because we're animals, which again, like you said, fights have always happened. What people do is they go, I can engage in this fight because at the end of it, I have a gun. They know they have a gun because she has a concealed carry permit and she made the decision to put a gun wherever she held it and conceal it and take it into a Walmart just in case some shit pops off. So suddenly, you walk up and when the fight happens, you don't go, it's a 19-cent notebook. You go, I can't believe you're fighting me over this. These bitches don't know I have a gun. Because now your mind is, I'm gonna end this fight. Because it's normal now to shoot someone over a notebook.
Yeah, there are no winners here, right? The feeling that it's cool because this person has a concealed permit or license. The fact that anyone, I mean, think about it. That was, the escalation ended with someone pulling a gun out. But think about what happened prior to that. Like, I can't imagine pulling a stranger's hair over a notebook. Like, they were pulling one another's hair. They were like throwing punches. They were getting physical over a notebook.
Yeah, but you didn't see the unicorns on that notebook.
Look, the 19-cent notebooks don't have the unicorns, so just keep it 100.
Okay, all right.
Anyway.
All right, forward.
Let's go to Hell. Hell, Michigan. Hell, Michigan is an unincorporated part of Livingston County, Michigan. And what they have is this fun little thing where they elect a new mayor every 24 hours. And recently, a gay resident of Hell, Elijah Daniel, was elected the mayor.
I love this guy.
And he is hilarious. Now, he's a comedian, but he used his new political position to make a funny political statement. Now, here's what he tweeted. As of today, August 30th, 2017, I am the legal mayor of Hell, Michigan. This is real, I'm the mayor of Hell. Now, here's where things start getting interesting. Growing up, I was always told that homosexuals would go to hell. Now the heterosexuals are trying to take this from us too. As of today, I am establishing new vetting measures to keep radical heterosexuals out of this town.
I love it.
All right, so he put this out as a notice on his Twitter account. The notice goes on to say that that its purpose is to keep straights from coming into the town and procreating, having more straight children to take rightfully gay jobs in Hell. He also wrote,
This has so many layers.
This
is
so
an
good.
onion.
It's so
Keep
good.
on peeling.
I'm peeling. All right. He also says, I love straights, but my number one priority is the safety of my town. Until the heterosexual threat has been reviewed, we cannot allow them to enter.
Until we figure out what the
hell
is going on, we can't allow these straights in. We just can't. I mean, we need better vetting.
Oh, it's so good. Okay, there's more though, there's more. He also says, yes, I am the first US mayor to ban heterosexuality, but I hope my act of bravery will inspire fellow politicians to ban straights as well. And then he finishes with, make hell gay again. No, this is so funny. Now, obviously, he's not serious about banning straight people, but he's making a serious political point in a funny way, and I give him props for it. Very clever.
So first off, I mean, let's just dissect all the layers as quickly as we can. One is, well, you said that hell was for gay people. I didn't say it, you said it, right? So I'm trying to do what you say the Bible says. Now hell is only for gay people. Well, you can't argue with the dude, right? And then second of all, if you say it's discriminatory, well, that's what you do to other groups. So when he makes the reference to, we have to have a serious vetting of these straights, and I need to, hey, look, safety is my number one priority in this town. Exactly what they say about Muslims in the Trump administration. And then on the issue of gay rights or straight rights, he's like, no, I want to take away straight rights just like you took away gay rights. So if you're like outraged by that, shouldn't you be outraged at taking away gay rights in the same exact way?
I mean, being straight is a choice.
It's a choice. I mean, that's what I hear from the right wing all the time. They could go gay, they could get into that kind of situation, and they would love to, but they've made a choice, like because it's either or. They could go either way. They made a choice to be straight. So in hell, you got to make a choice to, or in this particular town in Michigan, you got to make a decision to go gay. If you don't, sorry, you lost your rights. You had every ability to go gay and you didn't. It's your fault.
Now, even though he was meant to be mayor for 24 hours, he did get impeached, and he wrote about it. He wrote about it on Twitter, and it's hilarious. He says, although I enjoyed my time as mayor, I've been informed that I've been impeached as mayor of hell. This will not affect my presidential run. And then he tweeted to Donald Trump saying, being impeached was fun, Donald Trump. You should try it. Oh, I love this guy. You're so good. That was really funny.
Elijah Daniel, new American hero. So you can't complain about the guy unless you're willing to do what he asks of in the other direction. So if you say, hey, you're right, you don't ban straight people, we won't ban gay people, or we won't have different rights for gay people and straight people, or Muslims and non-Muslims, or all these different kinds of people that are actually just human beings and we're all the same. So the way that he flipped the shoe on the other foot, I know the right-wing mind. For a second as they're reading this, even though they know it's a joke, they were outraged. They were like, you can't do that to straight people. Well, why can't you do it to straight people, but you can do it to gay people? Great point, well made. That's 2 American heroes in 2 days. Elijah Daniel with a great point on that, and I loved LaDawn Jones from yesterday, who on the fight over Georgia, where one of her former colleagues had said, oh, you'll go missing if you try to touch any of our Confederate documents down in South Georgia. And she's like, whatever, those documents are coming down. Hashtag bye, Felicia. And by the way, your kids are gonna work for me because you're ignorant and my kids aren't. It's like, damn, those are progressives fighting back. I love it.
So good.
Okay, we don't have time for the debarking story, huh?
We don't.
You wanna do it in the post game?
No, I don't want to do it in the post game.
You want to do it
I
tomorrow?
feel like you're going to be in favor of debarking, and I actually decided I don't want to have that conversation with you.
No, you gotta let me get it. Look, my.
I don't want to know. I don't want to be upset with you today.
No. My debark is worse than my bite. So no, we're having that conversation.
Okay.
Post game, should a court ordered a dog's vocal cords to be removed? In fact, 6 dogs. Why did he do that, and was he right? The great debarking debate, and of all places in Oregon. The libs in Oregon are ripping dogs' throats out.
Okay.
Okay, tytnetwork.com/join to hear that spirited debate during the postgame. And then tonight, aggressive progressives. If you like your progressives aggressive, you're gonna love Jimmy Dore and Steve-O. So make sure you check that show out. Membership does have its privileges. By the way, you get the whole show completely ad-free anytime if you're a member, and you can listen anytime, and you get the network shows. We did a great old school last night with Mark Thompson and Steve-O. We were in the O-zone.
All right.
All right, guys, enjoy that. tytnetwork.com/join. Bye-bye.